10 things you should do with your new Apple Vision Pro. This is Vision Pro Focus on MacVoices. Welcome to Vision Pro Focus. This is a group effort between the Vision Profiles podcast and MacVoices. I'm Chuck Joyner. I have with me Eric Bolden. Eric, good to see you.
Good morning.
And Marty Jencius is with us as well. Marty, good to see you.
Good to be here. This is always fun for me because it's not article, news story. It's like, let's talk about a topic.
Well, but you guys do such a great job on Vision Profiles of doing articles, apps, different things. The reason we started Vision Pro Focus, though, is to dig in a little bit deeper just to the overall user experience and trends and whatever you're seeing. This time, we're going to talk a little bit about, 10 things you should, the first thing, 10 things you should do with your Vision Pro once you get it. Now, I know you two keep trying to talk me into getting one, and I keep inching closer, and then things happen and pull me back. But I'm still intrigued by the whole thing, especially having done a demo at the Apple Store, and then also Marty sharing some of it at MacStock this year. So, if and when I get a Vision Pro, or if and when any of the audience members get one for the holidays, what are some of the first things they should do?
Well, I think Eric and I have come up with a list of, we didn't consult on this, so it'll be interesting. It'll be a surprise for both of us. But I'm gonna start off because your question kind of says, what is the thing that you should do? Well, you should get it set up properly. You should get the right light shield. You should get the right lenses if you need the right lenses, and you should take some time to get it set up properly. Because that's where a lot of users, they don't struggle, but their problems are often related to how they set it up and the light shield that they've done and the strap that they're using in terms of weight. So outside of the things that you do, the thing that you need to do is really spend some time making sure it's comfortable and it's set up. Eric, would you agree?
Yes, and oddly enough, the first item I had was similar. Make sure you have lots of light, because during the setup, the camera scans your hands, and as you're trying to learn how to use the controls, the response time is better with lots of light. Once you're used to them, you can get it to work in virtually no light. But when you're first setting it up and you're getting your whole profile and everything all set up, it's much better to have a lot of light. It just makes it easier.
So, Eric, elaborate on that for just a second. So I'm envisioning me putting this thing on, and you're saying I need lots of light in the room as part of the setup process?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, because if you picture, most people order it and it either gets delivered. For us, it's like late afternoon, or you drive to an Apple store, you pick it up, you come home and you say, oh, great, I want to set it up, and it's dark outside and your room may or may not have all the lights turned on. If you have like operating room light conditions when you first set it up, everything later seems to go better. Or, just be in a room where you can turn on some overhead lights. For some people, that's the kitchen. Other people, they've got, a lamp in the living room, or overhead lights. Turn everything on so you have lots of light when you initially set it up.
That both of those together are such a great tip, because we all do it. We get a new machine, we get a new device, we get a new toy, we get something, and the first thing you want to do is come in and play with it the way you think it should work, and don't take that little extra time that would either solve problems or just enhance or improve the experience, your first experiences with it. So that's a great way to start.
Along with that, I would say, accept the fact that you and everybody else will not be satisfied with your persona. My wife hates it because she says it looks like I've died 10 years prior, and it's like a coffin shot of me. But the thing is, the funny thing is, you get used to it. And when you're in the environment with other people, the personas become less important than your initial look at it. So again, that's all part of the setup. You need plenty of light to set up your persona, and you need to have it at the right height. The persona setup for me was a little tricky to get it done, and that's not why I'm going back to try and perfect mine now that I've got it done. But yeah, the whole the whole setup is really important to have the best user experience.
Now, to be clear, the persona is the thing that is showing on the screen on the screen to the outside world.
No, that's eyesight. What
That's
you're
eyesight.
seeing in a persona is during the setup of the device, it asks you to create a persona. And that persona is, you take the headset off, you put it in front of you, and it has to be in a well-lit room, and you do all sorts of sort of like face scan ways of that you do when you set up your face recognition for your phone. What you get then is a camera shot that has been put together of what your head is like, and it actually becomes it's movable. So as you turn your head, as you blink your eyes, as you smile, um, within the headset, the cameras recognize that and then projects that image. If you're in a room with other people, it projects that image out to other folks. So it's an integral part of the interaction with folks within the environment, but nobody is generally pleased with their persona.
If you think about it, like having a FaceTime call, everybody's done that now, where you're sitting in there holding your phone, and your face then is sent out to the other person. The other person's face is sent to you. So there's an issue if you have a whole headset on your face. That's not what you want in a FaceTime call. And if you have a phone out in front of your face, that this isn't what you want. So what they do is they basically build a virtual you and have that be what gets sent out. And since there isn't really a way to kind of build your whole face from within the headset and remove the headset, you end up with a persona. It's a virtual you so that you can do FaceTime calls.
Got it.
But
Okay,
it's responsive. It's responsive. So when you blink your eyes, when you smile, when you laugh, all of that comes through this virtual head.
So it's sort of like a deep fake head for your face. Is that may not be the most positive way to express it, but hopefully it'll convey the meaning.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I automatically come to think of it, though, that's kind of the way it is when I look in the mirror in the morning. I'm never happy with what I see, but anyway. So where do we go from here? That we're not going to be happy with the persona. What can we be happy about?
Well, there's one. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Eric. You go ahead and take the first shot.
There's one more thing to think about, and that is if you go for a demo, they've kind of switched back and forth between that single loop headset or the dual loop headset. One or the other is likely to work for you. I tend to like the dual loop headset, but the important thing is the first impulse is to tightly strap yourself into this thing so that nothing moves. And I think there are a lot of people that end up experiencing face pain, either pressure up above or pressure underneath the eyes from the light shield. I find that if you use the dual loop band and basically treat it as a hat that you're gently setting on your head. Kind of like a cheese head hat, like you see Wisconsin people wearing at games. Just gently set it on your head so that it's almost too loose. In fact, occasionally, sometimes I'll get a message that says my eyes aren't close enough to the screen. Then I have absolutely no pressure below my eyes, no pressure above my eyes, and it can sit on my head for hours and hours and hours without noticing it. When I first started using it, I tightened everything down so nothing moved, and it the amount of time I could wear it was pretty low. So think looser than what you might normally think, because you're going for comfort. And if you can't adjust it so that you can wear it for longer than 10 minutes or longer than 30 minutes, then there's a good chance the light shield isn't quite right. And you can go to an Apple store and you can swap out the light shield for a different light shield that's a covered change. So it isn't always correct the first time. But if you can have everything loose, that seems to work in more cases. If you're going to let somebody else try out your device, having it a little bit looser leads to a better experience as well.
Got it. So does the looseness have, I know what you just said about the light shield, but that I would gather that taking that approach to it might change which light shield would fit you.
There is some wiggle room with all of the light shields, so there's hundreds of combinations. And if you get one that's pretty close, whether it's loose or tight, it should work in both cases, but one case will leave you somewhat uncomfortable after 30 minutes.
Okay. And so you have the strap across the top. Eric, do you have, Marty, do you have the strap across the top as well?
Well, as it turns out, Belkin just created a strap to go with the solo loop, the kind of expandable meshy thing. And I got one last week, and we'll talk more about it on our show. But it seems to have helped, and not that I really had a problem with it, but I constantly felt myself having to shift as the thing would slide, and the band across the top that Belkin provides keeps the shifting from occurring up and down with it. So you can go either way. Some people have no problem with it. I've always heard what Eric suggested. People will tighten it too tight, and what they say is tighten it so it's secure, and then back off a little bit. And with the solo loop band, you can loosen it, and then it, if it's feels tight, then back it up, tighten it to where it's tight, and then turn it back a little bit so it's a little loose, and you'll have less head problems with it.
Okay. That works. That works. So all of this sounds a little bit like you're getting a new suit, or a new, I guess for guys a suit, maybe for ladies a dress, or a piece of clothing that you sort of have to make sure it's right, everything fits, and maybe even have it tailored a little bit. And by tailored, I mean getting the right light shield, getting an additional strap, or the right strap.
Yeah.
Okay.
The light shields each light shield comes with two different kinds of cushions. So a thicker cushion and a thinner cushion. So you can swap out those cushions on the light shield, and that helps also with the availability of how tight it is or how easy it is. Eric's showing that they're magnetically attached. They just clip in. Yep.
Yep.
Perfect. All right, so I think that gives us the first three, which all sound like they're in preparation for use, for you to get using this. Do any more prep, or can we actually dig into the Vision Pro itself?
So getting the setup is really important. Let's get to the fun stuff, which is what you can actually do with it once you get it. And I'll start with the first. What was on the top of my list was immersive video. And Apple provides some really good immersive video. My favorite happens to be elephants. There's a bunch of other immersive video. There's like flyovers of Hawaii, and some of that gets to my vertigo. But the elephants, where you're in the middle of a camp that is basically an elephant rescue camp with people in Kenya who are feeding the elephants and taking care of the elephants. You can't get that experience in any other device. So that's why that's my number one. You got to see what it can do in terms of spatial video. So my number one on the list is immersive video. And there are some documentary kinds of films, 3D video, 3D movies are great, but start with the stuff that's been shot in high resolution for the purpose of the Vision Pro.
Okay. Eric, would you agree with that as a number one?
Excellent choice. Just commenting more on that specific one, just being able to stand in place while something as large as an elephant flows right by you, it's something you can't simulate. And I mean, even if you went to where the elephants were, they wouldn't be as comfortable with you as they are with whoever was standing there. So you still wouldn't experience it the same way. So yeah, great choice.
The only thing it's lacking is the manure smell, to make it really seem real.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that.
But that's
okay.
an important element. I mean, you don't really realize how much smell is a part of place. Think going to a beach with the scent of the ocean breeze, which could be fresh and nice, or it could be fish.
That's a really interesting point, and it speaks to the quality of the experience of the Vision Pro. That it's not a case of like putting a beach scene or an elephant scene up on your TV, and yeah, you're watching the elephants there. But with the Vision Pro, it's much more like you're actually there, and so the absence of sense might be a little maybe not disorienting, but just it's worth mentioning.
Yeah, the elephant passing you on the right on a regular screen, you're just seeing it and it's out of your view. You can turn your head and follow that elephant because it's been shot that way to be able to see it, which is a different experience, a really immersed experience.
Okay. So Marty did that one. Eric, your turn.
Well, okay. So I had elephant too, but I wanted to say first and foremost, this is a secure display, which is the easiest way to think about the Apple Vision Pro. So kind of what do I mean? If you think about it as a display, it will do everything that a normal display will do, but you then get additions. Marty mentioned it before in that you can view things that a single flat display doesn't let you view. So if you have a panoramic image, you can bring that up, surround yourself, put yourself in a cylinder of the panoramic image so you can look at the entire view as if you're standing in the spot where the image was generated originally. If you have spatial video, 3D video, like the elephants, you can see them come past you. You can watch a bee sit on one flower, fly towards you, go around, and then fly, and then set down on another flower that is bouncing up and down in the breeze and going sideways across. That looks very different from if you see it just in a regular 2D view without the depth, knowing kind of what's in front, what's behind. You don't have just focus telling you that. You can actually see it. with same with still images, watching an image of like your favorite puppy that has the puppy in the room with the paw reaching out towards you is a totally different experience than just seeing a picture of a puppy with a paw lifted up, but you don't know that it's lifted up reaching towards you to paw at you to be able to go outside or whatever, or get your attention. It's extra cueing you can't get any other way. It's a secure display in that you're watching it, but no one else is seeing it with you. So if you have a work spreadsheet up in the middle of a coffee shop, you're not showing anyone who walks by behind you what all your numbers are. You still can see everyone coming by you because it's a spreadsheet floating in space in front of you, so you can interact with people, but it's private for you, which is different than a display on a laptop. It's more protected. If you were in like in my case, in an office in the fall of the year, late afternoon, the sun comes directly in the edge of the office, and I can't see a thing on any of my screens. Put the headset on, I have perfect lighting. There's no glare coming across the screen, meaning I can't see anything. So I can read all of the text, basically. It all works.
So you're in a completely
security.
controlled environment at all times.
Yes.
Okay.
And in fact, you can affect the environment behind you. So you could be in your office seeing everything, or if you get that sun glare coming through the office, you can turn yourself into a completely artificial environment behind your screen. A beach scene late afternoon. You could even put the trees, blowing around in the breeze in the late afternoon in Bora Bora, with a crystal clear screen sitting in front of that. So, as focus.
It's interesting to hear you, and I agree with everything you said. It makes perfect sense, but it's interesting to hear it listed as a positive, whereas the solo experience or the singular experience and not being able to share it has been viewed sometimes as maybe a negative. But this is the flip side of it, that you're right. I can see whatever I want to see in there, and nobody else can be seeing it. And it's not like they can, unless they rip it off my head, that they're really going to be able to see it. So,
well, and it's more that no one else inadvertently sees it. Because if you need to show it to somebody, you can have an iPad sitting there, and you can direct your view to the iPad as a second display, basically, and then they can see exactly what you're seeing, including and up to on the virtual screen. You can reach your hand out and point to things on the screen, and the mirrored view of what you're looking at on an iPad would show your hand reaching out and pointing to elements on the screen. You don't have to do that, but you can do that. So yes, it could be private, it's secure and isolated, or it could be shared in a targeted way.
great point. Great point. Marty, what do you have next?
Next on my list, it's to me, it's interesting. Eric went for the video stuff, and I kind of assumed he would go for the video visual thing because that's really his thing. So I stayed away from those as choices and went more for the social and the 3D immersive environment. And so next on my list, the second thing you should try after elephants is in space. And we've spoken about this before. It is a social environment that's set up as a app within Vision Pro that you can get and you can create you are given your own little apartment, which has 8 chairs in it, and you can invite people in, and that's what they do quite a bit. They have a schedule of discussions, they have a schedule of book studies, they have a schedule of media reviews, and most recently they even have a schedule of AA meetings. There is a regular Alcoholics Anonymous meeting that meets in space. So it's turned into a really nice social platform. People who come in as their persona, and so, you're talking to some floating heads, but it's a real time experience. You can even play games in it. The rooms are set up with board games, so people will play board games, and those games are added and getting more complicated as the time goes on. But it is a social environment for people who want to have social engagement in the platform.
Okay, so now this is the first socialization pick for the three of you, or for the three of us, the two of you. The idea that you're now, to sort of the opposite of what Eric said, now you're talking about interacting with people, which is a really interesting aspect of it.
Yep.
Okay, Eric. So what are you going to take us to next? He has so
Wow. Well, there's so many overlaps kind of between the different categories. I think what I'm going to do is talk about the Mac virtual display. And I kind of talked about it before, but talk about it in the sense of, kind of two things. One, it is different now than it was earlier. So anyone who saw a demo before, say, about December 10th, 2024, or has Vision OS software before 2.2 will want to kind of re-look at the Vision Pro again after that date. The Mac Virtual Display, when it first came out, was kind of blurry. Sort of if you focused on something carefully, it was there. People went back and got the vision checked again. It worked, but it wasn't really functional for lots of detail. That has been greatly improved to the point that I prefer the virtual display over my real displays, partly because I get more real estate, but I can work it. I can do video editing in it. I can do all my typing, all my text stuff. It's clear. I can read it. I can read it even if I virtually push the display further out away from me to be able to have a huge amount of space. I will give that there are different default settings. There's like an ultra wide display, which is like having 3 screens curved in front of you. That is huge. And for some things, it's really good, but I find that you have to turn your head a lot. So if you're going to do that, putting yourself in a swivel chair so that you can keep your head consistent, but then just turn your body or swivel in the chair, looking at different parts of the screen. I find I get less neck strain. Otherwise, it's like sitting too close to the screen in an IMAX. But you don't have to use the ultra wide display. You can use the slightly narrower display. Some people might find that useful. So yeah, it's good now.
As part of your campaign trying to get me to buy one of these things, you sent me a Final Cut timeline that was crazy. I mean, it made me want to go out, run right out and get one because of the ability to see the editing across the entire project, and with amazing clarity. So,
Yeah, you could just keep zooming and zooming and zooming, and it was all there.
and to your point, you could I assume that you could turn your head and continue to see it at different points along the timeline, sort of the way you could if you had an ultra wide monitor. And I'd say, okay, I want to look at this part of the timeline, or I want to look at that part of the timeline. Now it's all virtual, and there is no compromise on quality or zooming.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and the other thing is, you get an ultra wide display, and you need to have it positioned just right so that it's comfortable to work on. And sometimes people kind of put it on a stand and lift it up. Sometimes it's kind of over the physical structure of your desk and your workspace sometimes determines where it can go. If you have a virtual display, you can grab the display and you can tweak it up just a tiny bit or down just a tiny bit or push it out a little bit. The physical constraints of your space have nothing to do with the display. And it took me a while to kind of realize that because I'd be using a virtual display and then have a real display there and a phone and an iPad and so I tended to put the display up above everything so that I can kind of glance down and go back and forth. And what I realized is what I really wanted was a virtual display wrapping around directly in front of me. So I didn't have to look up or down or over to the side. I just had exactly where I would want it. And physically on my desk, it was always just slightly off the back edge of my desk in a spot I could never put a display. Or if I was sitting at a table with my MacBook, I put the display really just slightly higher than the keyboard on the MacBook, basically right over the top of the MacBook screen, but then pushed it out a little bit. But when you're looking at it, you're viewing it as if it's in front of your MacBook screen. So it's positioned perfectly ergonomically, yet and you can see everything, you can work on it. You can use your MacBook keyboard, but you have this display, and it doesn't matter what stuff is piled on your desk. You don't have to worry about the display bumping something when you go to rotate the screen one way or the other and knocking something off the edge of the desk, like a pile of mail or something. You can push the screen further away. You can bring it up really close. You can stick it off to the side. It all works.
Okay. That's a big reason for me to start considering this, but that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, and
Marty?
what Eric said in terms of the virtual display, users have been wanting the ultra wide display for months, and Apple wasn't releasing it, and it was cut. They were like, "It's supposed to be in 2, now it's in 2.1." No, it's not in 2.1. It came out with 2.2, and I think they held off because they wanted to get it right, and at the same time improve the way in which virtual displays are shared in the headset, because it was kind of grainy. I might as well use my MacBook when it first came out or when it was just being tested, and it's gotten remarkably clear in being able to use it. So yeah, it's a good pick, Eric, particularly now.
Eric and Marty got a little bit carried away with their lists of 10 things you can do with your new Apple Vision Pro. So we're splitting this particular session into 2 parts. Eric and Marty will be back next time, along with me, of course. They're still trying to get me to buy a Vision Pro. Let's see if it happens. I'm Chuck Joyner. As always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.